Hello there and welcome to another episode of World of Tanks with Untitled. In this particular episode of Tank Talks, I want to talk about shooting enemy tanks. Everybody who's played World of Tanks for any length of time has come across the dreadful phrase and the alternative version. And of course there's also that one bounced. Even more annoying is we got him when all you did was some bit of module damage. So what do you do when you find yourself in the position where you're shooting spitballs and you cannot penetrate the enemy tank? Well, a lot depends on the circumstances and what your options are. The obvious thing is to try and track the enemy tanks. That's probably the easiest and most obvious thing to do when you can't think of anything else to do. If you successfully track the enemy tank in an open position and you have allies supporting you, then there's a reasonably good chance that the allies will be able to do the damage to the enemy tank while it's out in the open, and you'll get assistance damage from doing this. I am assuming here that you've already tried premium ammunition. The first obvious thing to do, of course, is to switch to premium ammunition. In general, premium ammunition gives you considerably more penetration at the expense of a lot more silver. Now, the thing is, you do know that you can buy premium ammunition using silver. If you go into the garage and go to the resupply and press the Y key when you have selected premium ammunition to buy, that will change the currency from gold to silver. So you can buy premium ammunition using silver. It is a lot more expensive, but it is one option. Now, not all premium ammunition is actually got better penetration. There are, I think, some of the British medium tanks, some of the Centurion Hesh rounds, don't actually have as good penetration as the regular APCR that the guns fire. However, they do a lot more damage. Another option, of course, is to relocate. Simply run away, move on, and see if you can get a flanking position or some other location that you can fire on the enemy from a direction where you can penetrate their armour, or where they're exposing armour that's penetratable to the gun that you have. You have to balance up the possibility of being able to escape with the possibility of being caught in the open ground while you're moving to cover by the tank that's shooting you, or by allied tanks that maybe have a line of sight on your position. Ideally, if you could back up towards allies and towards allied guns to draw the enemy towards allied guns, that can be also useful even if you can survive long enough to do it. If you really are going to die and you can't hurt the enemy in any other way, you can try spamming high explosive. You'll do a little damage, but you won't do much, and it generally won't save you unless the enemy is on very, very low hit points. So, to get back to the options, aside from the premium ammunition, which is works or doesn't, and doesn't require any particularly special skill, unless even with premium ammunition you need to be shooting weak spots, in which case you need to go learn the weak spots. Finally, just want to get back to the tracking and a little discussion on where and how to track tanks. If you're directly in front of a tank facing it like this, it can actually be quite difficult to track the tank directly from the front. You're generally trying to shoot the tracks or shoot the front drive wheel. Now, it's either a drive wheel or a track tensioning wheel, but we'll go with drive wheel in general terms. So you're shooting that front wheel and you're shooting it directly from the front. That's actually one of the hardest ways to penetrate it, and it can be quite difficult. You have a much better chance if you have an angle like this. So while at this angle you might not be able to penetrate the lower front plate of this tank, and we're assuming, say, that the near side tracks are covered, they're behind cover, you're fighting at a corner, you can shoot the exposed section of the drive wheel there just at the end of the lower front plate. Just put a round in there and it should go through the front wheel, and that should disable the tracks. This, like I said, might give other allies a chance to hit the enemy, or if you know that the enemy doesn't have any friends, it will enable you maybe to get around a faster and more manoeuvrable tank. So if you want to learn the weak spots of a tank, well, until recently you had no choice but to go onto the internet and look up armour models there by searching on the internet. However, now there is an in-garage armour model. However, we'll do the internet one first. So you go into your web browser, You just type in some general search term like console World of Tanks, console armor viewer, and we'll get up a bunch of results. And one of those results, if we scroll down, is there's Armour Inspector, which I think is a downloadable app. And then there is tanks.gg. There may be other sites as well. So we go into tanks.gg and we get up the home page. So we just to show you the basics, we put in a tank name into the search box. We pull up the tank. You get a bunch of information on the tank, quite more than you will actually on the Garage Stats in World of Tanks, or even on the wiki or the Tankopedia. However, one of the options up there is a 3D armor model. We can then select the 3D armor model, and this 3D armor model will give us the effective armor at the different angles that we can rotate the tank around. So you're not just looking at the actual thickness of metal, but you're actually looking at the effects of the angling of the armor relative to the point of view of you, the viewer. This can be very useful information when you're trying to figure out how to do stuff like side scraping or angling your armor, or various other advanced or intermediate or advanced tricks like that of the game. However, you should be aware that the values in this these kind of viewers are for the PC version of the game. And while a year ago I'd have said that I wouldn't be bothered particularly about the differences between the PC and the console version, there is an increasing divergence between the two systems and the two games, so that you need to be aware of this fact and be careful of it. Weak spots in general should be the same for the same tank on both the PC and on the console versions, but you know, there's no guarantee that this will continue going forward. You can also look at the armor models in the game. You can go into the garage and you can press Y and you'll see the modules and armor model for the tanks in the garage. So here we're looking at my DW2 in the garage, and we're looking at the armor module. Now this one gives you basically armor bands, so you get a series of different colors showing the different thicknesses of armor, but it doesn't show you the exact thickness. For instance, the top armor is probably the strongest armor is about 50 millimeters, I think, in the DW2. But sometimes the band might be, for instance, they might have a band down of 90 to 120 millimeters, and your actual armor might be closer to the 90 millimeters rather than the 120 millimeters. You also can go into the tank tech tree, and you can just select a tank, move along, and you just pick whatever tank you want. So we're looking here at the Tiger 1, and I pressed the wrong button there, but if you press Y, you get up a view similar to the garage view of your tank, and you can actually pull the left trigger and you'll just see the tank, and you can then have options to get into the modules or the armor by pressing the bumpers. So here we have the armor model for the Tiger 1. So you can see the strongest armor is the flat surface on the upper glacis and the lower front plate and the front of the tank. This one shows up, actually, you can see there's different armor levels around the gun mantlet, representing different layers. And one of the things that you will notice is sometimes you could point your gun, your targeting reticle, at the front of that tank, and you might see locations where the targeting reticle is red, indicating 100% penetration, but you won't penetrate. What's actually happening there is that you're looking at the armor model of the foremost piece of armor, and that might be penetrable, but the armor behind it is much stronger and won't be penetrable. So it doesn't actually matter whether you own a tank or not. You can actually look at every tank in the game by simply selecting it in the garage, pressing Y if you have an Xbox, and you'll get into, like I said, a view very similar to what you would have in the garage view. So there we're looking at the T150. We're looking here, the option, I think I'm going to pick the IS3. And the IS3 is an interesting one because it comes pre-sloped. The IS3 is already sloped quite steeply, so if it's directly facing you, it's actually already getting the effective thickness of being angled, so to speak. And it's also got layered space armour. That stuff above the tracks, you've got an inner layer there and an outer layer. So one of the things to be aware of when you're shooting tanks like that is sometimes you're looking at spaced armour. You're not going to, you might be able to penetrate the outer layer of that spaced armour, but you might not penetrate the armour that's behind it. I've gone on long enough in this video. The longer I make my videos, the greater the chances of something going wrong on an upload. So I'm going to cut it short here. I was going to discuss auto aim as well in this video, but I'll leave that for a later video. And I may also mention some more about armour angling and side scraping. I won't do anything specific on armour angling and side scraping. I'll just talk about it in general terms, mostly because it is very specific to the tank in question. It's different for every tank, and you really need to learn the specifics of the tanks and the specific weaknesses and strengths of that tank's armour. So I probably won't mention very much about that, but it is something to be aware of, and it is something that you should be able to find plenty of information on YouTube. Specifically, I know that Quickie Baby and Jingles on their reviews generally go into armour, side scraping and angling of armour for the specific tanks. And I'm pretty sure people who do review videos do the same thing. Others do it as well. Yes, there's a difference between the console and PC versions of some tanks, but the general principles would be the same and would be applicable on the same model of tank across both platforms. So I'm going to leave it at this. I will continue this discussion in the next episode. Hope you found the video interesting. If there's anything specific you want to know, feel free to ask in comments, and I'll try and cover it either in the comments or in a future video. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you again soon.